Hello and welcome to the MBA Cohort videocast. My name is Alex Miller and today I'm with social media expert Jeremy Pepper. We're so lucky to have Jeremy on the show to discuss how TikTok can avoid the Vine curse, child labor laws for mommy bloggers, and why authenticity is the best business model for influencers today. Make sure you connect with us on LinkedIn or visit our website, thembacohort.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter and find out what Christina is giving away next. Again, special thank you to Jeremy for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So, Jeremy, tell me, other than having that little blue check mark next to someone's name, how do you define a social media influencer?
Well, it's really interesting because I've been involved in social media for a really long time. And I think I go back to the original BlogHer days when they first started the conference. I was at the second BlogHer and got very involved in the mom blogging world. And, Robert Scoble way back in the day said, it's not really about influence, it's about who's connected to whom. So that one person, and we see this happen all the time, that one person with maybe 10 followers on Twitter can actually be the person that blows up a story because they're being followed by the right people. For me, the social media influencer is actually someone that is creating content that is value for other people. And there's the problem with influencers, I think, especially that's being exposed right now during the pandemic, is a lot of it is for pay. And I think there has to be a certain level of honesty and, I guess truthfulness, I guess would be the best way to put it. Authenticity, that's what I'm looking for these influencers. And a lot of these, and what we're seeing with a lot of these influencers, there's no authenticity. It's just about the paycheck. And I think those are the influencers that are problematic. For me, it's the influencers that actually care about the brands and use the brands. It's not just paydays for them.
So would the business model for an influencer not start with getting paid day one or post one, but maybe getting paid post 100, or just continuing to put out content until something monetizes rather than having to monetize off the bat?
Well, I think that's actually a really good point, because when I started going to BlogHer and getting involved in the mom blogging world, I was really early, and I was trying to convince my other coworkers at the agency at the time that we should start engaging these bloggers. Like, no. And I'm really proud because I pushed hard enough that we invited them to. I was able to get a few different food bloggers, and this is about 15 years ago, invited to events about barbecuing. And at the time, not everything was paid. It was more of a symbiotic relationship. And if you look back at the original influencers that are sort of even gone now because it is cyclical, they were putting out content to share their experiences. It wasn't about getting paid. But an interesting thing happened in the middle of all this at BlogHer, and I think it was like at the fourth or fifth BlogHer I was at, where we would go to these different PR panels, and there's a lack of understanding about what public relations itself is. And there was a chant from the famous line from Goodfellas, "F you, pay me." Mm-hmm. It was actually chanted at one of the panels. And I would try to explain, like, I'm not advertising. If you want advertising, you should do advertising. But I'm PR. And the truth is, even back then, there was a pay-for-play aspect to public relations, and there still is. But the clients and the agencies hadn't caught up to what the bloggers and influencers were doing yet. So it was actually like, I'll send you product. That's all I can do. You need to pay me for the post. And I would actually explain, then you need to actually explain that that's a pay for post and disclose. Mm-hmm. And that still is a big issue on social and influencers. Then none of them disclose when they're being paid, or they do it in such a way that is extremely inauthentic.
I think people can tell, or if you're following someone long enough, they're posting every single day, and then they do something very structured and very not them.
Yeah.
You can kind of guess that it's for pay. Do you think that it's the obligation of an influencer, someone you follow who you think is authentic, to disclose that it is a paid advertisement?
It's actually the law.
Okay.
But it's the law. It's an FTC regulation. that isn't well enforced. And like, okay, so a lot of my experiences in starting all this was I was one of the first 15 PR bloggers. Out of that, I did and still got a lot of access to PR tools for free that cost a lot of money. And I would have disclosed that, hey, I got this for free. But I also like one of the original FTC attorneys was actually a blogger and did panels at Blogger. And it was interesting to sit in these panels and listen to her talk because there was such a disconnect. And then there would be bad information. Like, it's a $50,000 fine, which was never actually written anywhere. And it was just something that somebody pulled out of the air. But there is an obligation with the FTC guidelines to disclose. And what will happen, it's not the influencer that's going to get punished. It's the agency or the corporation that's doing this campaign that will likely get punished. And I know a lot of them in their contracts spell out you need to disclose. Mm-hmm. So you'll see the hashtag spawn, which they all will claim, like, and the FTC guidelines says it has to be clear. They all say that spawn is clear. To me, spawn means nothing.
Yeah, that's not a word.
Sponsored. Or if you're an old Tick fan from the cartoons, it's spoon. Spoon, which everybody used to love. But they'll hashtag it ad, or what other hashtags do I see? I see spawn, ad. It's a way. It's almost like these influencers are trying to fool their public.
Right.
But you're right. Like the ones that do it the worst are the ones that it comes out of nowhere and it's extremely inauthentic. So it's obvious that it's paid.
But it is the law, which is interesting. But it's not enforced right now. Yeah, that's probably.
It's never been enforced. That's the joke about it.
Oh, it's never been enforced. Okay.
Well, it's enforced, but like I don't think they have a big enough staff.
Right.
So they can't really do much.
If you're chasing down everyone all day, I mean, it's gonna take a lot of manpower.
They did go after one of the Kardashians.
Of course, the big ones.
Yeah. There was a massive case with an agency in gaming that they didn't disclose that the gamers got the game for free and were paid to do reviews. And I want to say one of the women's clothing companies, like not one of the hip ones, but like Ann Taylor, got slapped for not having disclosures.
Really? On their social media posts?
Yeah. No, that was one was a blog post campaign, and I think the Ann Taylor one was actually an early Instagram campaign.
Oh, wow. You said let me circle back a couple questions ago. You said something a few times. I never heard the word before. Mom blogging? Was I hearing it right? Okay. Can you define what mom blogging is, please? The start, I think, in the modern era, I think the big start of influencers was women who were blogging about motherhood. Mm-hmm. And it was actually interesting because a whole community actually came out of it. First-time mothers, mothers who were going back to work, mothers who had left work to be moms, working mothers. So all these different niches and blogs started popping up, and conferences came out of it, as well as publishing networks. Blogger was both a conference, still a conference, and a publishing network, and an ad network. And I call it mom blogging. The disdained term of it was mommy blogging, but it was a huge growth area, and it still is actually, but it's moved off of blogging to Instagram and different communities. But it was a huge, immense power because these were the people with the purchasing decisions at home. And it was funny because there was a big blowback. But what about the dads? Like, who cares about the dads? They actually go grocery shopping. And so there was actually like dad blogging conferences that pop up. Like there's Mom 2.0 and Dad 2.0, which is the same parent company. But the Dad 2.0 was about dad blogging. And there's a bunch of dad bloggers who have made it big and moved on to other things as well. But yeah, it started out with because, motherhood is, and I can't speak from experience, but from going to these conferences, motherhood is extremely stressful. You're a first-time mother, you lean on your family. But if you think about it, nobody really lives where their family is anymore like they used to. So you don't have that support network. So online became the support network. Yeah, you can feel kind of alone, not a lot of information. It's your first time doing something. But then when you have thousands of other moms going through the same thing, it creates a very strong, committed network.
Yeah, and it's funny because my parents recently moved. I found my mom had saved my first 3 pediatrician appointments. I don't know why, but I had the paperwork, I had the notes from them of what I was supposed to be eating from 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. But I think that just, and even though I was the third, it just goes like, shows you that it's I was the first babe, I was the first boy, but it's so life altering that you want to share these moments and also get help from other people in these moments. But I think what back in then, my grandparents lived a few miles from us, so we actually had the free babysitting.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, right down the road. Yeah, it's amazing how kids today can literally see every day of their life from the time they were born till whenever, as long as they have cloud storage for photos. But the amount of photos that they have of their childhood, I have like 3 or 4 that, in those coded, you print them off at CVS and they store away. But now with all the cloud storage with photos, people can literally see the progression of their lives, which is totally game changing for Sunday stories and for moms to look back on photos. So I can see how that can be a huge market for social media influencers.
Yeah, and it was interesting because a lot of these higher end successful moms were using their children almost as props for their photos.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of blowback because at some point these kids are going to become old enough to say no. I don't want my photo taken anymore. And it's interesting to see because I've been following this for so long. It's interesting to see that transition of kids. Yeah, I don't want to be in these photos anymore, Mom. I'm not your prop. And the kids disappear.
Do you think there's need for laws and regulation, child labor laws against mommy influencers with their children props?
Well, there is. Well, it's funny. There's the Uncle Fester, Jackie Coogan. It's the Jackie Coogan law, but it's only in California, which I didn't realize I always thought it was a national law, but it's only California. Sorry,
I'm not familiar with that law.
Jackie Coogan. You know who Uncle Fester was? Okay. I feel really old. Do you know the Addams Family?
Okay, Addams Family. Now I'm with you. Yep.
The bald-headed guy who would stick the light bulbs in his mouth was Jackie Coogan. Jackie Coogan was also in The Little Tramp, the little boy with the famous actor that Charlie Chaplin.
Okay.
That Charlie Chaplin movie, he was the little kid in The Little Tramp, and he made a ton of money as a big child actor that his parents spent all of it. So when he was older, the Jackie Coogan law, and he apparently hated acting, but he had to do it because he had no other skills, because he really had no schooling. So the Jackie Coogan law was the money had to be put away for the child in a trust.
Okay.
It's only in California. So if you're a family with child actors in New York, it's different laws there.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So you still see child actors sort of being screwed by their parents.
But the actors in this case would just be your mom, and it's just a normal Tuesday, and she's constantly taking photos of you, like with doing whatever.
Right, and there probably is some way to control that, but it's. I don't know. I wouldn't know what the answer would be there.
It's a tough conversation for a 3-year-old to ask for a royalty from his mom on photos.
Well, today's kids probably ask for it though.
That's true. Okay, so let me ask you this. So for the influencer business model or industry at whole, are you bullish, or do you think it came to a bubble? Where do you see the generation of influencers growing, or do you see it being fading away?
Both, actually.
Interesting.
I think the pandemic was sort of a come to Jesus moment for influencers. A lot of them were not smart, especially the New York wealthy ones that in the new age of moms on Instagram, where they're bragging about how wealthy they are. And I got out of New York City and I got my COVID-19 testing. When Vanity Fair, New York Post, New York Times is covering these women and shaming them, that's probably sunset. And with this pandemic, it's really highlighted class differences and the ability of not having to work or being able to work from home versus being an essential worker and having no choice but to work, and also having to work to put food on the table. And I think it's always been a lot of it's been aspirational. as a country where what we sort of had this weird aspirational to be wealthy thing, not comfortable, but wealthy and opulent. And those people, I think that era is over. And if you think about it, I know on my Facebook and Instagram, it's been the bakers, people making their own sourdough starters, cooking at home, baking at home, doing arts and crafts. It's almost like a weird, like I shouldn't say weird. It's almost a throwback to the 1950s where everybody is stuck at home. So you're becoming more neighborly and community oriented and doing a lot of stuff at home on your own because we sort of have to. I mean, that's why it's almost been impossible to find yeast and flour at grocery stores because there's been such a huge run on them because it was also impossible to find bread. I think that's where it sort of is going. It's the people that either honestly or manipulate or strategically said, "I'm one of you. I am suffering as well." I mean, even the celebrities had a lot of blowback. Ellen DeGeneres, like, "I'm stuck in my mansion. It's like being in prison." No, it's not. I mean, you can go outside and walk around your block, which is that's how I stay sane. There's a lot of pushback on celebrities. A-Rod and J-Lo had pushback because they're down in Florida, I think, in an opulent house. And there's been a lot of blowback from their fans about this. And it's funny, like, you don't hear about the mainstay influencers. You don't hear much about Kardashians. I'm not hearing much about Gigi and Bella Hadid. Those people seem to have disappeared. But the influencers I am seeing a lot of are the ones that are doing baking and arts and crafts and doing freebies for the places that used to pay them. One of the influencers I follow, because she's also a friend, Rockin' Mama, she's been posting on Instagram, support these restaurants, because these are people that have done campaigns with her in the past. These aren't campaigns, it's her giving back.
I see. So she's giving them free posts to support her local restaurants. That's a good marketing strategy because that's going to pay her back just equally as it pays them back, supporting your tight-knit network.
And it's fun. It's funny in quotes. Like, I have a lot of friends that are in PR, and they're still being contacted by influencers. Like, "I have this many followers. You should give me this for free," with almost no understanding that restaurants are hurting. And this is the time to not ask for things for free.
Yeah, let me ask you this. As far as the influencer's strength, is it quantity of eyeballs or hyper focus of interest? Or, of course, the happy medium between both?
I think it's a happy medium. What I see with the influencers that do well is they have a very specific audience that craves what they want. And I mean, I've been talking about the 30 to 50-year-old range right now for most of it, but like, think about the tweens. The tweens and the teens, their influencers are still going strong. Jeffree Star is the makeup guy. There's been massive blowback on something that he just did, because if it makes it to the New York Post, it becomes national news that it's a blowback. But he came out with a palette that was called Cremation, I think, and people thought at least that during the pandemic was tasteless and tone deaf. But he has his followers. Like, you look at the whole next generation of kids that are working on influence. They're so relatable to other kids because they're all going through the same thing right now.
Yeah. And I think it's just the public never being satisfied, but we want authenticity. We want to see the real, unfiltered look at someone. Unless they say something that we don't like, then we want to shame them for what they're saying. So that's kind of the balance that I think a lot of influencers have to play is, what does my audience want to hear? What builds my brand? And what kind of gives me some longevity in my influencing career by not selling out to either one, not selling out just to your crowd. So you never have, you see the balance that they're trying to play.
Well, and I think a perfect example of that is there's an influencer in Phoenix and it was sent to me by one of my friends. J. Crew, as you know, went through filed Chapter 11 during the pandemic, and she posted on Instagram, "I'm not going to be posting any more J. Crew affiliate links because they're not going to be paying me for it." It's like, okay, so you never actually cared about J. Crew as a brand or clothing line, and it was only for money for you. Thank you for actually broadcasting that to everybody. And yes, there was blowback about that, but it was like, oh my God, do you not see the optics? You should actually be saying like, hey, it's a brand I like to work with. It's a brand I've been working with for a long time, and I love them. Even though they're in Chapter 11, they won't be paying me for the affiliate links. Here are the clothes that I'm wearing, and I like that you should also be buying.
Yeah, that takes away the authenticity of her post that we talked about earlier. So let me ask you this. Do you see influencers as being an alternative to traditional media, or do you see more money pouring into influencers and that business model? Because every time my TV goes to commercial, my eyes go straight to my phone, along with a lot of other people. As soon as they have a break, their eyes are on their phone. So that's where our eyeballs are going. So is the influencer is it just an alternative asset, or is it going to take away money from traditional media?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of the stuff that we've been doing on mobile usually has gone down drastically. Like Spotify numbers are down because we're not commuting. Quibi, which was mobile only, it was supposed to be for commute, launched, and it's been a massive failure. I think you're right though. During commercials, we wander off, and when I have Hulu on and it goes to commercials, I go to my computer, not as much as my phone, but my computer, and just read other articles. But I think you've hit on something that I see so many of these same commercials over and over again. Postmates has all these celebrities in it talking about their favorite restaurants and where to go eat. There's an ad council coronavirus COVID-19 commercial, which is a bunch of influencers that are mainstream and not so mainstream that are talking about covering when you cough, wear the face mask. So it's like mainstream TV media, at least, is seeing the shift. And I think, for PR and marketing, you have to have a good balance and figure out who your audience is.
Right.
So
you want to
go ahead.
Yeah, you want to support a message that speaks to you too, because ultimately what you like on Facebook, what you like on Instagram, what you follow, what groups you're part of is now your identity online. So you connecting and engaging with the influencer also reflects your opinions.
And and let's be honest, it's not about Facebook. Facebook is too old. Although there actually is a resurgence of college age kids coming back to Facebook for the groups to find jobs. Instagram is, I think, settled into a certain demographic. The key right now is TikTok influencers, and TikTok, as I just posted on Facebook, because I manage a bunch of groups, TikTok is where Vine was. And TikTok can either go the way of Vine or go the way of Instagram, ironically, and either support the influencers and make it monetizing easy, which is what they're starting to do, or not work with them and die, sort of like what happened with Vine and what happened with Snapchat in the beginning, where Snapchat was not supporting the influencers on the platform. TikTok has done a lot of smart things with the platform, and they've helped build a lot of these young dancing influencers. There's a whole other mess about that we won't get into, but if you want to see the next influencers, it's TikTok. And what's interesting to me, going back to the mommy blogging, I'm seeing a lot of moms jumping onto TikTok to start building or rebuilding or building their brands. There's TikTok houses popping up in LA, just like there were Vine houses and YouTube houses. So it's these young influencers
just make content.
Yep.
They just make content all day. Oy.
And oh God, who is it? The kid from Ohio, the two brothers from Ohio. And of course I'm blanking on the names. The one had a Disney deal, and he was interviewed on ABC in LA and blew it.
Logan Paul.
Yes, the Pauls. Thank you. Yeah. They moved out here and lived in I think it's Hollywood and Vine. There were like apartments complexes that were just for these content creators.
Wow.
And that's how and so people are doing that now for TikTok. What's interesting to me about TikTok is how many different niches are growing on it. Healthcare is a huge segment on it right now, where doctors are explaining to patients or to the audience, the young audience, different medical issues. The moms are growing on it, talking to other moms. It's the dancers. They've done a great job. But like, it's funny, I was on the prior version of it. I was on Musical.ly. I joined it immediately when I heard about it because I thought, like, seems like something that will take off, and I immediately deleted it because I felt creepy because it's such a young audience.
Yeah, and that was gonna be my next question. Is there's got to, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but there's got to be some psychological effect that's gonna go into a middle school, high school, college age person who is craving attention and likes and like doing whatever they need to do to get those likes on this fake fantasy land of social media.
So it is 100% FOMO, fear of missing out, plus presenting your best life. And it's interesting, one of my student workers actually wrote a column about the amount of stress and pressure Instagram was causing for her to present her best life. And one of my former colleagues in Singapore was mocking gratitude, because gratitude, the hashtag, is being used to present your certain fake or your Instagram life, which might not be your real life. And it's years ago, I had a debate with an analyst about this, that social is the life we want our life to be, and not our true life. But also it's causing stress and anxiety for people of all ages because they don't feel like they can live up, or their life isn't as great. And that's why there's the Insta and the Finsta. The Finsta is the real life, or the Finsta is the fake life. The Insta is the real life. And there is a weird balance that we need to talk about. That's mental health and healthy living. And I think that's also one of the things that we're seeing right now during the pandemic is people are being extremely honest about their mental health, their anxiety, their depression, their eating disorders, because the pandemic has really brought that out, because you're locked up at home and you might be back at the place that caused those issues for you. It's something like the pandemic, and we're going down a line of down sort of like a bunny hole of totally different topic, but it also relates to the influencers, because I think the influencers that are being real with their audiences, which is why the Cyruses, Miley, and I think her sisters Noah, do well on social, because they talk about their issues, they talk about their problems, they talk about the things that are bothering them or happening to them.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to ever feel like you're showing the worst parts of your life, but you also don't want to present a fake part of your life. So again, it's finding that balance of giving the message that you want to present, which is why it's so important, going back to your point earlier about being targeted towards your audience and using this very powerful platform to spotlight a passion and to bring people together for a common goal, common good. When you're doing it just for the money, just for the likes, just for the views, that's when there needs to be some protection to those people, because I can see that going in a dark place. Yeah.
And then all the other dark side about it is, if you do well, your content's stolen and your name's taken off of it. And becomes
there you go.
That's happened to a lot of friends of mine. Whether they're food Instagram or parenting, that their stuff is, their name, their copyright stripped off of it and cut and posted on other channels.
Yeah, and who's to protect it? You know,
that literally is money out of their pocket.
And we all hit I agree when we sign up for these websites, and who knows what all those terms and conditions are, who owns the content.
That's why I always read them.
Yeah. Don't tell anyone, but I didn't read
it. I'm weird in that sense that I always read them.
Okay. All right. Well, I have faith in someone's reading it. All right. Great, Jeremy. Well, I think that was a lot of good content that we just made right there.
Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.